Hello and welcome to Sydney. Welcome to our first stop on the 2020 FIA Certified Gran Turismo Championships World Tour calendar. Oh goodness me, it is good to be back, but it seems like only yesterday that we were in Monaco. But here we are, back ready for action. And the Nations Cup is what we're going to be talking about here today. And I've got Jimmy Broadbent and Florian Strauss, two of the finest commentators that we have to offer here in Gran Turismo. And gents, now I've massaged your ego. Let's talk about the Nations Cup. Let's talk about the big talking point here this weekend as well. Igor Fraga and Mikael Hazal, our two champions in the Nations Cup, not here this weekend.
Yeah, kind of a weird way to start the year, I suppose, but other commitments, unfortunately, that does happen. But I think the great thing about this is it gives opportunities to perhaps other people who have been struggling. Let's be honest, Mick and Igor are fairly dominant in a lot of their driving, so maybe time for someone else to step up and take that role.
Well, how do you think that's going to affect things, Florian, for these drivers in terms of their mentality, knowing that the two, I suppose if you want to put it, big hitters aren't going to be here this weekend?
I think probably positive and negative, because I think every one of our competitors here, they want to beat the champions of the previous 2 years. So, but I think it's, as Jimmy mentioned, it's a great opportunity to already book your ticket or gain some points already for the big finals in the end of the year again. And we have a few drivers that's been coming pretty close in the last year at the World Tour events, and I'm sure they had practice and try everything here to get on the podium.
And slight changes in terms of the format for this year in the Nations Cup as well, which is going to make things quite interesting. The most important thing I think to talk about is the addition of World Tour points, essentially. So if you finish in first position overall in the World Tour, you get 3 points. You finish in second, you get 2, and if you finish in third, you get 1 point. And what that is essentially an extra incentive for the drivers, because what we saw last year with drivers who, say for example, Nicolas Rubelar, he won the first World Tour event in Paris. Then technically he didn't have to come to any other World Tour event. So in the rest of 2019, obviously he did. But it gives that little incentive for drivers to go that extra mile, keep that momentum going, and we get to see them in some brilliant racing action at the World Tour events.
And of course, those points then go towards the final round, of course, later on in the year. So whereas last year people were asking, why is Eagle coming back? He's already won one. Why is Nico coming back? He's already won one. Now they've got a reason to come back, get as many points as they can earlier in the year, and then hopefully have a better run into the final. So I kind of like it. It's a good incentive, I think.
And Florian, we've got the online season, of course, that's going to be starting in March. All these drivers are going to be competing once again to get themselves to our second World Tour event at the Nürburgring. You've been in a position before where you came through the GC Academy. You know what that pressure's like when it's on you. How different is it from being sat at home on your sim rig to being at one of these events or in the public eye?
I mean, most of our competitors, I've been, after 2 years now, we've seen quite some familiar faces every time, so probably most of the guys are quite used to it now. But I think it's something completely different than sitting at home in a known environment. You know, you have your setup you're used to playing maybe for years already. So I think this is also something you have to consider when the guys coming here. And probably most of them won't have the same pots at home where they can train on. And then obviously the situations on stage, having all the people watching you, is something different. And they will, at least in the past, they have felt the pressure, I guess. But now I'm seeing it's, for most of the tries, it's something they got used to quite quickly now.
And also, this weekend, of course, we've got a live audience for the first time as well. I mean, that is going to be pretty exciting. The first time in 2020, I should say, having a live audience. Quite a few people that I think have registered their interest, and a lot of local people coming along to see what the World Tour is all about. That's going to make things quite exciting.
I think that's the best part about it, is getting people involved, saying, come have a look at what we're doing, because whilst seeing it online is one thing, being part of an audience is another. I'm sure you'll know if you've been at any motorsport event.
And I think, sorry Jimmy,
we've seen
don't worry, Florian, mate, you come in.
on a Tokyo event, obviously like the audience pushed Cook-a-Boon a little bit, so become our winner of the Tokyo World Tour event, which obviously could maybe help the local drivers from Australia here. So maybe they got pushed by the audience to even perform on a higher level than we used to see them.
I think one of those local drivers that we need to keep an eye out, of course, is Cody Lukovsky. Won the Motorsport Games event in November last year. Has been doing pretty well, actually. Never sort of had the potential to get himself ahead of the likes of Igor and Mikael Hazal, but on his day we know how quick he can be, and with those two drivers not here, is it his time to shine this weekend?
There was a bit of a joke last year saying, another Codium, because Cody always used to be, it's always second or third step, just couldn't quite get onto the top step. So now is going to be the best chance of him. But the thing is, you know what he's like, and I'm sure you know as well, Florian. the two big guys aren't here and you win, you think, well, I won because the two big guys aren't here.
Yeah, and I think Cody for sure is like, he is a driver that wants to beat everyone, and he for sure wants to beat the best drivers we had in the last 2 years, and definitely Igor and Hizar. But I'm sure he will try everything to even achieve the podium and then wait for his opportunity to beat the champions of 18 and 19.
Another driver I want to talk about as well, Florian, Coque Lopez last year, again a driver who we mentioned the phrase nearly man so much in 2019 during the broadcast, and he was that, but we saw some phenomenal performances. You look at the repechage when we saw in the world final, he came from 12th all the way up into 4th position by the end of it, and managed to get himself really in contention and show that potential that we know he's been able to unlock. Can he do something this weekend?
I'm pretty sure he will try again. Also, we're very special to mention Coque Lopez's skills. We saw him repechage coming from quite far back, making the impossible happen to even qualify for the final. And he's one of the drivers that quite often be in the final, but he has to make his weight often quite hard and having to go through the repechage or starting from bad positions. But even with that, he never got a penalty from the stewards over the whole season.
Yeah, that was the impressive thing.
Yeah, so he's really one of probably the fairest driver when it comes to...
And aggressive. You can be aggressive and fair at the same time.
I mean, I remember like few events where he really had incredible starts and immediately make it up to the front. So I'm pretty sure he is the one also to have an eye on here at our first World Tour event in 2020.
Definitely.
So, go on then, gents. Top step of the podium on the Nations Cup on Sunday then. Who are you going for firstly, Jimmy?
It's got to be Cody, hasn't it? It's got to be Cody. I mean, I think that he'll see it as it'll be a win, but not the win he wants. But I think it'll be a good start for him to do that. So.
A bit of Aussie support here this weekend, maybe doing it.
I think a lot of Aussie support this weekend. So.
Florian, who are you going for?
You have to pick someone else, but I think Cody will for sure be. I said him for sure on the podium as well, but I go with Coque this time. Coque Lopez.
Yeah, Coque Lopez, a good shout. So one other thing to mention, of course, this weekend we've got a new car. An Aston Martin DBR9 GT1 car back from 2010. Now, I mean, I don't know about you, but that is one of the most phenomenal sounding machines ever, and I cannot wait to see 12 drivers out on the track battling.
People seem to, it's a bit of a meme now, me loving the V12s, but again, one of the best sounding GT cars I think ever to exist as well, and pretty successful, of course, in its time, so good to see it come in now, I think.
Florian?
And also I remember when it came out as a race car, I felt quite in love with the design of the car and how aggressive it looked, and I was waiting for it to come into the sim racing games to actually drive it, and I can't wait to see it as well, like Tom, to see our competitors get a hand on it.
So if you want to check out the Aston Martin, join us for World Tour 1 of the 2020 FIA Certified Gran Turismo Championships. You can catch all the action live over the course of this weekend. We look forward to seeing you there.